Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing today? My name is Mariana. You are here watching Mexico Relocation Guide. Today's live stream is so important for a lot of you because I know that one, it's a nice welcome break from all the election chatter. So if you're here watching us right now, thank you. I'm sure that it's also a welcome break for you for not watching the news and all those things. But it is election day after all, and a lot of you are probably wondering, how can I leave the United States? Or if you're watching us from other parts of the world, like Canada, Europe, and other parts of the world, you're probably also tired of hearing the election chatter from the United States. So let's change it over to a much more, right now, pacifist country, right? And that is Mexico. And I'm joined today by one of my dear friends and one of our top immigration facilitators in Mexico. His name is Saul. He has been helping our customers for years now with various different things, which we're going to cover today. We're going to cover Mexican residency. We're going to cover RFCs for those of you who are wondering what that is. We're going to cover what it is and who needs it, who might not. We're going to cover how to petition your spouse, how to petition family members, maybe even if we have time getting married in Mexico for those people who might have paperwork issues and why that may be a better option. But Saul is definitely the right person. He operates both in Cancun and in Mexico City. So before we get started, I would love for you guys to tell me at home where you're watching us from. Leave us a comment. We're going to talk about some topics, but then at the end, we're going to open it for a Q&A for you guys because this is your time. This is for you guys. I will also mention one more thing. You might notice that on our YouTube channel, we're doing this on Facebook. We normally do it on Facebook and on YouTube. But unfortunately, we're dealing with a disgruntled video editor that is claiming some copyrights to some of our videos. And in the meantime, YouTube has disabled our ability to live stream on YouTube. However, we can upload videos on YouTube. So once this is done, the replay will be available on YouTube as well as on our channel. And as well, of course, on Facebook and Instagram, where you guys are watching us from. But yeah, don't want to make too much of a deal about that because it's really not a big deal and we're going to win. And that guy is just a joker. So thank you all so much for being here. I see, let's see, Annette from Austin. Kristen is in Denver. You guys are our neighbors over here, Ben and Kristen, both watching us from Colorado. Hola, hola, hola. Arizona, Dallas. Mili, hola, ¿cómo estás? Te mando un beso. Canada, Illinois, California, Florida, Ohio. We've got the entire United States in the house today. Pennsylvania. Ooh, Pennsylvania, I'm sure that you are welcoming this live stream too to get away from the news a little bit. So without further ado, let's get started. But first, I wanted Saul to introduce himself and tell you guys a little bit about what he does and what cities he can help you in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mariana. Thank you very much for having me here. And thank you very much to all the people that are connected to this live stream, to my friend Millie also. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Saul. I'm an immigration specialist. I'm physically based in Cancun, but I also provide services, as Mariana said, in Mexico City and in Merida. Also, I'm expanding also with strategic allies in Merida. Okay, so I will be very happy to provide services for you in those three venues. Also, I can assist you with the process from the very beginning. That is requesting an appointment at a Mexican consulate abroad, which can be, it can go from frustrating to challenging or whatever other adjective you might want to pick. It can be sort of frustrating sometimes because especially at this time of the year, many consulates are already closing and not having appointments available until next year. But you might get lucky and get some cancellations, and if you insist and if you try to work hard with them and being just very alert on cancellations, you can still get some appointments done. But that's what I offer as part of my services. I deal with the Mexican bureaucracy from abroad. And also, once you have your visa stamped in your passports, I can help you with either myself or through my strategic allies in these cities. We can take care of you from the beginning until you receive your card and you have your card in your hands. So we provide comprehensive services on these cities, starting with the immigration processes. I will stop right here, right now, and willing to see how this conversation evolves, and then happy to go through specifics as needed.
Yeah, thank you. That was very comprehensive, and I agree that all those things are things that Saul offers plus more. His family also is helping us do relocation tours in Cancun, where they can show you different neighborhoods, show you what it's truly like to live in Cancun from a local's perspective. You get to sit back; they do the driving, so you don't have to figure out how to rent a car, how to get around, which unspoken rules of driving in Mexico that you might not be used to. So it's a huge service that they offer, and really our customers love that because they get to ask their questions about how do I get my prescriptions, and where do I go for this, and what doctor do you recommend for this, and really they are your local resources in that particular city. But
Yeah.
let's get into residency. You mentioned something, Saul, that I think is maybe some people don't understand. So getting the initial consulate appointment is so hard. Why is it hard? Why? I mean, I know that nobody really knows why, but maybe you can explain the differences between different consulates and how some of them require you to book through a specific website. Some of them only want direct emails and those kinds of things. What are you seeing?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for introducing this topic. The main service and the main function of any consulate of any country around the world is to provide services mainly to their own nationals that live abroad. So we have to understand that the Mexican consulates are quite busy offering services, documentation services, consular assistance and protection to Mexicans abroad. They allocate a huge amount of time and human resources to the Mexican people that live abroad. But a fundamental part and responsibility for the consulates is also to promote Mexican culture, Mexican residency, and offer the services, and let foreigners get to know how to get into Mexico properly. And that is where there's a specific department at every consulate, which is called documentation. Sometimes it is one single person taking care of several applications. Sometimes other bigger consulates, such as Chicago, such as Dallas, they have more staff. And many of them, they usually they manage an online web system, appointment system, which doesn't work for every consulate. The main platform, it's extremely challenging. Sometimes it is not working at all, and this has led to many consulates to take the decision of working directly with people via one email. So consulates like Orlando, like Vegas, like San Antonio. San Antonio has even this good practice of calling people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've had several
That's a first.
experiences. Yeah, I know. I have had several experiences that we started the first approach with the consulate via an email, and they reply like a template response asking for a phone number where they can contact people. And like 3 or 4 customers of mine have told me, "Hey, Saul, they just called me and I have an appointment for tomorrow." Okay, that's perfect. So every consulate works different. In general terms, you have 3 options to book appointment. First is website, online. Second, surfing, Googling the Mexican consulate and try to find if they work by email, identify the email that they ask people to get in touch with them. And they also have a WhatsApp services only in US and Canada. the honestly, the WhatsApp, when it works, it's the most efficient, reliable, and easy method to book an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Again, unfortunately, not all the consulates work with WhatsApp. Las Vegas doesn't work, for example, with WhatsApp, but Orlando does, for example. Austin doesn't work with on WhatsApp. So it is a matter of, you know, doing some research and identify the best way to establish communication with the consulate and start from there. And if a consulate doesn't work, you must identify another consulate, but that provides services to people out of state. That's very important too. Some consulates do not provide services if you live away of their jurisdiction, and that you only can find that out by contacting them. For example, Miami, you send them an email, let they reply asking you for general information, and they let you know this only if you live within these counties, you are eligible to apply at Miami. Other than that, you must refer to your nearest consulate. So those are the three ways that you can obtain an appointment at a consulate. It is
Mm-hmm.
also very useful to check their website to find out specifics about economic requirements, about all the documentation that you will need to show during your interview.
Yeah. Yeah, very important information that a lot of people don't realize. It's really a glimpse into what you will deal with when you deal with Mexican bureaucracy. And it does require some patience. It requires obviously some tenacity, but I would say more importantly than anything, it requires working with the right people who know these processes in and out, because trust me, it has taken Saul, other facilitators we work with, and the reputable ones that know what they're doing, years to get their processes down. Also, the consulates change this. What happens right now in November of 2024 might be different than what happens in January of 2025 or March of 2026, or so on and so forth. So it's really important for you to work with the right people who have their processes down and who are doing this day in and day out, so that they know, okay, this consulate, I know that they have appointments on Wednesdays, or like, for example, Austin, I know that they open up appointments on specific days of the week after 12 p.m. And you wouldn't really know that because they don't publish it anywhere other than working with the facilitators that do this day in and day out, and they are learning these things. And Saul is shaking his head like, that's not exactly accurate, because he probably knows more than I do on what exactly Austin requires.
No, you're right.
Yeah, so it's just like, I really, really refer working with our facilitators for that reason. Now, what kind of, okay, so here's like a tricky one, and I know that sometimes it seems the not the facilitators, the consulates kind of make up requirements. I'm not gonna like try to call them out, because I really don't know what they're who they're getting this like directive from, what leadership is telling them to ask for these things. But some consulates will ask people for signed bank statements, some will not. If they do get asked for bank statements to provide economic solvency and their bank refuses to sign their bank statements, what do you recommend to customers at that point?
Well, first of all, it is very important that during the approach with the consulates, ask for specifics. Some consulates, as you mentioned, we will not accept, for example, bank statements printed online, or they will require a business card from the bank teller stapled to each bank statement. So first, it is very important to find out whether they will ask for specifics. Ask for them about these small details, because the evil is in the details. Exactly. Um, if they, from the very beginning, uh, gave the specific documents and how they must be shown, there is no way that they will waive one single document. if they require that it to be signed by your bank teller and your bank refuses, well, at least try to get a letter from your bank
Mm.
stating that you do have that Mr. Smith has a bank account number with a monthly balance of blah blah blah. He has been our customer since blah blah blah, and have that signed. At least one
Mm.
letter from your bank. That sometimes helps because also the consular officers are aware of. I mean, banks have their own policies, and they not necessarily must match with the consulate's of policies for this. So the consular officers are very very experienced. I can tell you for good. I know them. I know the bureaucracy how they work. They're very experienced, and they depending on the consulate, they might accept, for example, a letter from the bank instead of having every bank statement signed or stamped, which might some banks will not do. So
Mhm.
my first advice is try to find out as much detail as possible, go through those requirements and see whether you can or cannot fulfill them all, and then uh, try to continue working with your consulate, with the consulate, and see if one document can be replaced with another one.
Now, if they work with you, is this something that you help them do? Figure out what documents they
Absolutely,
need to bring prepared so that they don't
absolutely.
show up surprised and then, a consulate employee might tell them like, oh, sir, you didn't bring a certified statement. Sorry, we're going to have to deny you. So you help them prepare for these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I take care of all these small details. I get in touch with the consulates. I establish a very very close communication with them to try to avoid surprises as much as we can.
Yeah. And a lot of people have saved tons of time just hiring somebody like Saul, particularly him, right? Because he's really good at getting people appointments at the various consulates across the United States. What do you do when Canadians want to use a consulate in the USA? What's your advice for them?
Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, they have to bring their bank statements legalized or notarized. Some consulates will ask for that because those are documents from another country. They are not American banks, so they need to have a guarantee that those banks, have a legal are legally operating in Canada,
Sure.
that their statements are good. So some consulates will ask for uh, their bank statements notarized.
Yeah. Somebody saying from a Canadian aspect, yeah, it just depends on which consulate you apply, Glenn,
Yeah.
whoever is posting that. So for Canadians, the benefit of sometimes applying in the United States is one, more availability of appointments because Canadian consulates, with the exception of Leamington, I will say Leamington, if you're able to travel there, they seem to be more open than other consulates in
Mhm.
Canada and also very friendly to work with and give a lot of information over email.
Mhm.
Um, but one is being able to, do your consulate appointment sooner because you might be able to get an appointment sooner.
Sooner, yeah.
Uh, and two, be able to then travel to the United States and get a vacation out of it.
Mhm.
Particularly people who like going to Vegas. I know that the Las Vegas Mexican consulate is one of my favorites because they're so friendly and they give you a lot of the preliminary information that you need to bring and they
Yeah.
don't surprise you at the very end on like, oh, but you forgot this one thing that we didn't tell you in our email.
No, yeah, Las Vegas is one of the friendliest consulates that I have also worked with. Um, they are almost surprise free. They send you the information with all the documents and specifics that each documents. They even ask you, they ask you, please place one single month. They tell you how to set up your file by month from the beginning to the end, blah blah blah. They are very very good to work with, very 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 specific, and you get that by getting in touch with them.
Yeah, they're really good about answering emails
Mhm.
and things like that. So I'm going to recap that. Go ahead and find out what your nearest consulate requires for you to book an appointment. And that might be using the generic website, which is a really long link. It's citas, punto, punto sre.gov.mx. And so anyway, if they are on there, which by the way, the consulates have these links on their websites. If you Google Mexican consulate and then the name of your city, make sure that the domain says .gov.mx. That way, you know it's the actual government site and not just like some random site.
If you may, it's GOB as in Bravo, not as in Victor. That's
correct.
Very important.
Yeah. GOB, yeah, as in boy.
As in boy.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. Because for us, it's government.
It's
yeah. Yeah, good point. Thank you for clarifying that. And the other thing I want to recap is, you know, there is a WhatsApp number that you can use, but not all consulates use this booking system. So it's important for you to first Google the name of the consulate that you're planning to use, and then finding out through that website what their booking system is. They usually post it. If they don't post it, there might be an email address on there somewhere that you might be able to email them and ask them how you can get an appointment. If you want to save yourself the hassle of this entire thing, I would recommend contacting Saul and hiring him or hiring one of the facilitators in the guide if you're not planning on living in Cancun or Mexico City, who can help you book an appointment. So you good? Yeah, I think he's good.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm just trying to get. Yeah.
Okay. Now the other thing that I know you probably get a lot of questions on is petitioning family, and that's all over the place. Also in the consulates. I will tell you what I usually recommend our customers, and you can tell me if you agree with this or not, Saul. But I tell our customers that I really recommend that one person, the main spouse or the head of the household, obtain their residency first, and then for the family to travel to Mexico and then petition the family in Mexico. That I feel that is the most straightforward and easiest way. Unless you just have a ton of money in the bank and you are able to both prove that you have financial solvency individually. But how would you say about my recommendation?
I think it's a very accurate recommendation. It's straightforward, and that path, the people will avoid a second trip to the Mexican consulate, which means to avoid booking a second or third appointment at a consulate and attend the interview and bring in again all the financial documents needed. And bearing also in mind that per each dependent, you must add about 30% of the original income required from the consulate. So it's an income as if people have like tons of money, well, that's fine. And if you decide to do this in Mexico, there's the most important thing to do is to have your certificates apostilled. That's the most important thing to do. And also, if you're planning to move into Mexico, even if you are not doing an immigration process, I think it is always a wise and a good idea to have your documents apostilled, because that's a process that can only be done in the United States, in the state where the document was issued. So regardless that you will use this document for immigration purposes or not, it is always a good idea to have it with you. They do not have an expiration date, so you can use it several years from wherever you get them. If you use them at immigration, you just show the original and they will give it back to you. So and also that's the first point. The second point, your names must match exactly as they are in your passports. If this is not the case, don't worry. It takes only one additional step to go to the consular agency in the city where you would be applying. I can speak about Cancun, Merida, and Mexico City. We need to book an appointment at the consular agency to go to request an affidavit or for one and the same person. That's a service that we also provide in our firms. Um, Basically, it is a document which states that Jacqueline B. Reed is same as Jacqueline uh, Brednat, whatever. It states
Sure,
that
yeah,
it is the person, the same
yeah,
person. And with all those documents, then we can start the process, the immigration process. Those documents are part of your file, and then we get your resident card for you who was the main applicant. We need to have first your resident card physically, and then apply for your family. In Mexico, doing it this way, you do not need to prove economic solvency for to apply for your family in many places. Some places, some offices, some immigration offices might require for some purposes like regularization or other more specific immigration processes, might ask for economic solvency. That's a case by case basis, but most of them will not. You only need your documents. You get your resident card, your marriage and or birth certificates apostille, translated into Spanish, and translation must be done in Mexico by a certified translator in the state where you will apply. That's very important also.
correct. Yes, very important.
If you translate your document in the US by a certified translator in the US, it will not have legal it will not be legal valid for the purpose of Mexican legislation. You must use a certified translator at the state where you will apply. This is very, very important. And so once we have all those documents, we just finish the process, apply for your family, and you all get your residency cards.
Yeah,
And
I
it is
think
the most
honestly,
straightforward.
that's honestly the most straightforward. For one, correct, Glenn. For family reunification, you do not need financial solvency for your family members, as long as children are under 18
Oh,
and
yeah.
not married.
Mhm,
That your spouse is actually your spouse, so that you guys are legally married.
mhm.
If it is a common law marriage, you will have to bring more paperwork proving that it is a common law marriage, because that
Mhm,
works differently in Mexico than it does in the United States.
mhm.
You can also petition parents. You can also petition your siblings, correct?
Siblings, yeah, siblings.
And also adopted children.
Adopted children, yeah.
So there are many ways to bring in family members. If your children are over 18, and they are your dependent, maybe because for whatever reason they are your dependent, maybe it's for a medical reason or something else. There are ways. I personally have not had a customer that has had applied for a residency this way, but perhaps you have.
Yeah, when it has to do with a medical condition, you must get a medical certificate stating that this person totally depends on her parents because of, and there must be a medical document also translated into Spanish, saying that because of the medical condition, they will depend and rely totally on their parents. Um, There's also a way when the children are still attending school, either college, high school,
Mm,
then you can apply also for them even if they are 18 or older. One, you can prove that they are still studying and that they are your economic dependent, and they will be able to apply under their parents' sponsorship.
correct. So yeah, there's many ways for you to actually petition children that are over 18. It just depends on the specific situation. So for those specific situations, I really do think for many for many residency visa processes, a lot of people will say, oh, you don't need to hire an immigration facilitator. You can do it yourself. And yeah, I know. I raise my eyebrows at those comments too, because I'm like, have you actually ever been to an immigration office and seen how many people get turned away because they didn't bring the right documents? Then you traveled all the way to Mexico to finish this process. Like, just do it the right way the very beginning and hire the right people. But for bringing a family member in this particular case, like a child who is over 18 and depends on you, I think it's really important for you to hire the right people. So let me recap a couple of things, because I don't know if anybody who might watch either the replay or is watching us live may be a bit confused. For family unity, or for family petitioning, right? You're petitioning your spouse, you're petitioning your parents, you're petitioning a sibling, possibly a child, or, you know, whether adopted or your own. You can start the process in the United States at a Mexican consulate, right? All of you can start the process together. What I'm saying is that I think it's easier for the head of household to start the process in the United States at their Mexican consulate, be granted residency, and then when they need to, you need to travel to Mexico, by the way. Most of you who are watching this will need to travel to Mexico to do the second part of your residency. And then once that person obtains a residency card, they can then set up a new appointment to petition family members without financial solvency. And the easier reason is because a lot of Mexican consulates in the United States and in Canada and across the world are requiring that family members, for every dependent that you want to petition, they need to be financially solvent themselves. Not all consulates, but a lot of them require this. So I think it's a lot easier for you to just go to Mexico, finish the process there for yourself, bring your family as tourists, and then that tourist visa, not really a visa, but your tourist permit, and then be changed to a residency. So anyway, I think that's the best option.
Yes, I agree with that.
Now let's talk about and I promise you guys I'm going to get to your questions, and we're going to have Saul have a chance to chime in as well. So keep typing them in, don't worry. So what about regularization? I know that we are hearing a lot. Oh, sorry, it looks like my video got really blurry there. Let me fix it. Regularization. Sounds like, you know, we hear people talk about, oh, this regularization program is no longer going to be available in 2025. For people who have no idea what the regularization program is, would you mind telling us a little bit about it?
Sure, my pleasure. This regularization program started a few years ago when, with the pandemic, with COVID. Right when the world, it was difficult to travel abroad. Many countries banned even their own nationals to get back inside their own country. So there were many tourists and people in the case of Mexico that with an expired valid migratory document. So by that time, long story short, the Mexican government set a few requirements and started granting regularization for up to 4 years. And I say up to 4 years because in some cities you can ask for 1, 2, or 3 or 4 years of temporary residency. They started granting this first by proving that you have an expired document, and then currently by proving that you have entries into Mexico between 2015 and 2022. You don't need to worry that much about having your passports with you with those stamps, because what they do is they run your information on their system and they are able to retrieve your travel history information, so they will know about your immigration record. And this is a very, very generous program because it sounds kind of easy to fulfill the requirements, basically having an expired document and have at least one entry into Mexico in this time frame that I just mentioned. Um, and many people have taken advantage of this. Also,
And
there's
most
many people.
importantly, you do
Huh?
not need financial solvency to
They do
qualify.
not. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
It is part of the why I said it's a very generous program, and also you just need to. Many people also used to travel back and forth like every 6 months, which is the maximum that a tourist is granted. So also immigration started noticing that, and sometimes gave them less than 180 days. What they were trying to do is, if people are actually spending more than 6 months in Mexico, well, do it right, do it properly, get
Correct.
residency, and be legal in Mexico. So all these all these factors, the gave sustain gave like the reason why to have this program. And again, it's a very generous program. Um, it might sound expensive, but it is not if you compare it to many different countries in Latin America or America or Europe. And I will describe one case in how does one case is handled in Cancun currently.
Okay.
Currently, we just need to wait for people to have an expired document, whether a tourist, what people know as tourist visa, or even a resident card. When people forgets to renew the resident card and lose the residency, they have an expired migratory document, so they can apply for regularization. Okay, so the day after the document expires, we go to immigration. We give them their passports just to uh, for immigration to make sure they run their passport in their system, so they can be 100% sure that this person is eligible for the program. Uh, they give us an appointment for the next day, for the day after, and then we go the next day with the file. Our firm prepares all the necessary documents. Um, our firm and our staff provides you all the information on what to expect, how the hearing will go, what questions to expect from the immigration officer, and you file your application. Spend about 3 hours at immigration, and then you leave with your resident card, and you are now a temporary resident for the next 4 years without leaving the country, without showing economic solvency. Now, the $1 million question: when will this program will end? We don't know. At least I do not know yet. It has been renewed for the last 4 years, 3 to 4 years at least. It has been renewed with different requirements. The Mexican government the new administration just took office on October the 1st. There are still government changes going on.
Mhm.
They will be finished by December or and January. And we will have a new commissioner for immigration on December the 1st. So that will mean a change of all the executive directors of immigration. Not necessarily change on public policies regarding immigration, but we
Mhm.
might see some adjustments in general, and we need to be very alert on how they will handle it at the local level. So um, we do not know whether this program will continue next year. My bet, it will. That's
Yeah,
my
my bet
bet.
is too.
And there's one
Let's hope so.
specific reason uh, uh, from my point of view. My point of view is that it is a very very humanitarian program. It helps a lot. There's this discussion that why the people who didn't follow the rules get that benefit. It's kind of a tricky argument because anyone following the rules, whether on this program or not, is really eligible for Mexican residency. You do not need to wait for years. There's no line. There's no waiting line to get Mexican residency. So that argument is not, to me, is not valid. And my most strong argument, and I need to say, clear as crystal, it is a profitable program for the government. There are 3 government fees involved, which amount for X amount of pesos, which is it's minor if you compare it to other countries,
For
uh,
sure.
for sure. And but to the government, it represents uh, three government fees per applicant. So
Yeah.
it is, and it is also not. I do not see people sometimes argue that Mexico will get filled up with expats and immigrants. Currently, foreign population in Mexico represents 1% of Mexico's total population, which
Yes,
is
correct.
nothing,
Yeah.
nothing. And
Especially when you compare it to the United States, where, it's
uh
30% or more of the population for sure.
yeah, Mexico
Um,
accounts for 1%. So my bet, for all these reasons, I think that the government will continue with this program next year. As soon as we find out, we will start spreading the news.
Yeah, seriously. This is a game changer for a lot of you who may not longer qualify based on economic solvency.
Mhm.
I've even had people apply for it who did qualify for economic solvency, but they were like, I just want a 4-year temporary residency up front. Like, it's just better for me to not have to renew it after the initial year. So I want to recap what the requirements are. The requirements are that you must have an expired Mexican migratory document. So that
Mhm.
can be either your expired residency uh, visa or your FMM, which is essentially Mexico's way of giving tourists permission to travel
Mhm.
across Mexico. You
Mhm.
also need to have had a visit to Mexico at least once
Mhm.
between 2015 and 2022
Mhm.
in order for you to for you to determine your eligibility. That those are the first requirements. The
Yes.
other requirements vary depending on which immigration office you apply at across Mexico. Like, for example, the requirements I assume in Cancun are going to be different than the ones in Mexico City.
Mhm.
And they're going to be different in Los Cabos, and they're going to be different in Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta
Mhm.
and other parts of the world like Merida.
Mhm.
So those little nuances, it really does depend on where you're going to apply and which, obviously, which city you're going to be taking advantage of this program. For people who have lost the passport that they used to come to Mexico between
Mhm.
2015 and 2022, it doesn't matter. As long as you were registered in the system, INM, or Immigration in Mexico, has a way of verifying that you actually came
Mhm.
between 2015 or 2022.
Mhm.
There is a study that is done on every single individual case. So when you apply, it's not an automatically like you're granted this residency. They do an investigation, and that's primarily what you're paying for. There are a couple of fees.
Mhm.
Um, the program costs around $1,500 per person. Um,
Uh,
that's not covering any immigration facilitator fees. That's just for immigration fees.
yeah.
And that also varies depending on where you apply, because they do charge you a fine for basically overstaying or
Mhm.
having an expired migratory document.
Mhm.
And that fine also varies depending on which immigration
Depending on
office.
the city. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What else did I miss out? Did I leave out?
Just I have had cases also that people have actually stamps in their passports, and immigration for some reasons do not have their entry registered. It
Mm,
could be because they enter by land, by sea, or something. And in those cases, immigration needs to it takes a little bit longer for immigration to get the necessary information to verify that that stamp in their passport was actually, legally obtained through crossing by land, by sea.
correct. Yeah, cruise liners unfortunately have
Cruises.
a totally different process for
Yeah, no
processing.
cruises, but I have a client that he just travels on his boat, and he enters by Progreso and Isla Mujeres, and but he has been and last time he entered by air. So now immigration is getting all his information together to determine his eligibility. I'm speaking about a practical case, a practical ongoing case in Cancun.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully he's able to get it and prove, that
Yes.
he's not just coming on a cruise, he's coming on his own vessel.
On his own boat, yeah, on his own vessel, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope.
Sorry about being so specific with this example.
No, that's good. There might be people that are watching this or right now or in the future who are like, hey, that's me. I need to get in touch with Saul and see if he's able to help me out. For the most up-to-date information on this regularization program, which you will also hear me call the R&E program, we have it on our website. I will add a link to the replay. You can also find it on our free resources if you go to mexicorelocationguide.com. And there's a menu that says free resources. If you click on that, it'll drop down and it'll show you the Mexico residency guide. I highly encourage everybody to go and read it. It gives you not only this R&E program or regularization program breakdown, but it also tells you about family unification visas. What are the income requirements currently? So if you're watching this in 2025, you will have the 2025 income requirements on there. And it has a lot of information of what to expect at the consulate, what kinds of things you need to know about booking an appointment. I try to give you as much free information as possible for you to determine your eligibility. And then if you want to take the next step in the process and have more one-on-one help, that's where we suggest the Complete Mexico Relocation Guide. If you want to work with contacts that we have in the guide, like Saul, and we have contacts all over Mexico, not only in Cancun and Mexico City, but Puerto Vallarta, I mentioned, Los Cabos, La Paz, Rosarito, Ensenada, Tijuana, Guadalajara, Chapala, Playa del Carmen, Mérida, Progreso, Puebla, we have Guanajuato, all over the place, San Miguel de Allende. So anyway, if you want contacts for all those cities, we give you a directory of our vetted contacts in our online guide. If you're interested in learning more about the online guide, I'm going to leave a link before we go into RFCs. And this is a big topic because there's a lot of people saying you do need an RFC, you don't need an RFC. So I personally, this is just maybe an unpopular opinion, maybe Saul disagrees with me, but I would say, first of all, if you're a tourist coming to Mexico, you do not need an RFC. You are only obligated to apply for an RFC, which is Registro Federal de Contribuyentes. It's basically your tax ID number in Mexico. You're only required to apply for that if you are a resident over the age of 18, a resident or a national over the age of 18, based on, Mexican law. However, there isn't really any sort of like slap on the hand if you don't. And I would say if you are not generating an income in Mexico or you also don't need it for things like setting up utilities, or I would say maybe it shouldn't be the priority to apply for it unless you absolutely have to. I don't know what you think, Saul, if you agree with that opinion.
I absolutely agree. I've heard that most of the people want an RFC for buying, but no, I mean for selling their properties to avoid. I forgot how to say this tax in English. Property gains. Taxes.
Huh? Capital gains.
That capital gains. Yeah. Most people want to get their RFC because of that, and that's okay. That's a good reason.
Of course, yeah, it's a huge benefit.
But I agree with you, Mariana. If you have no intention to, for example, to open a bank account in Mexico, or your income, or you will not have any income generated in Mexico, there's no rush on getting your RFC. You can always get it and get a status of without tax. It's without taxation obligations, meaning that you are not subject to taxation since you do not earn an income or generate an income in Mexico, and you can have your Mexican tax ID, your RFC, Um, but other than that, there is no obligation, and it can also be a little bit challenging because first of all, you need to attend an appointment
Mm-hmm.
to get your RFC along with your electronic signature, which this electronic signature, it's basically three encrypted files that allow you to access to an account that you create with your information for taxation purposes. If you do not have taxation obligations, well, there's no reason for you. But to get it, you need an appointment, and then you need to attend that appointment. And again, everything will depend on the city that you are trying to get your RFC. Currently, Cancun has they send people to a virtual line because there are no uh, appointments available. They send people to a virtual line, and it takes up to 2 months to get the appointment, and they will notify you by mail uh, that you have your appointment, and next week they will notify you like 1 week ahead, but you
Mm-hmm.
only have 24 hours to confirm. So if you miss that email, well, then you will need to start the process again
And wait
and go
another.
back again to the virtual line, which is about 3,500 people as of now. It's a total different story in Mexico City. Mexico City, I had some clients last week. They get their resident card. They wanted their RFC, and I was able to book them an appointment for the next day. But it's Mexico City. There are 10 different offices of the customs which handles this, issues RFC. There are 10 different offices, so we had choices.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be different in Guadalajara, and it's going to be different in Playa del Carmen, and it's going to be different everywhere. So, uh, my advice: if you are not in a rush to that, really need to do so, you can take your time, and if you are if you have time to stay in Mexico and attend all the appointments whenever they are available, well, that would be fine. Um, Makes no harm to have it, but if you are not generating an income, or are looking to obtain capital gains, well, you might want to assess the whether it is a good choice for you to have it or not.
Yeah, we actually wrote a blog post on who we think should and shouldn't worry about getting an RFC. And when I say that, I say like, what are the different use cases of when it is needed? For example, some people have been asked for it to open a bank account.
Mhm.
Some people have been asked for it to set up utilities on their new home. Some people have been asked for it to purchase a new car in Mexico. Um, and some people obviously use it to avoid a specific amount of capital gains. You don't get to avoid like all capital gains. It does have a
Mhm.
limit. And there are other documents that you will need to do this. But anyway, so if you guys are interested who are watching at home on this specific blog post that we wrote, again, I encourage you to go to mexicorelocationguide.com. And in our blog post, you can search at the top, just put RFC. I put it in the comments too, so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you guys go to the website as well, you can see, what I'm talking about in our blog post. I'm going to start taking some questions from the audience. So thank you, Saul, so much for sharing a lot of your knowledge. And anyway, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for explaining all these things. This is just, by the way, anybody watching at home, this is just a very high level overview of all the little intricacies of Mexican residency,
Mhm.
of taxes in Mexico. What else did we talk about? The consulates,
Consulates.
the immigration system. I mean, there's much more to cover, but again, that's why I think hiring a facilitator is the best money you will ever spend. And if you need our vetted recommendations like Saul or other people that we recommend across Mexico, check out our Complete Mexico Relocation Guide. Again, I've included a link in the comments. If you're not sure if Mexico's right for you and you're just watching this, you're not ready to get residency, if you come from the United States, Canada, Japan, anywhere in the Schengen zone, other parts of Asia, you are welcome to come to Mexico for up to 180 days with one of those passports. So FYI, like if you want to scout it out and you're not really sure and you want to go and you want to visit different cities, we encourage you to do that before applying for residency. If you're not really sure if this is the country for you. And for that also, I really think that our free cheat sheet can help you determine, whether Mexico is worth researching more. So again, go to the website and go to the free resources. Okay, let's get into some questions. Matthew, thank you so much for being here. Puerto Vallarta is very LGBTQ friendly. So yes, you're in the right spot if that's where you want. If you want LGBTQ friendly, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico City, very LGBTQ friendly. Cancun, I don't know. Is Cancun very LGBTQ? Yeah?
Yeah, very friendly. Cancun, Tulum, Playa. Yeah, they're very,
well, Tulum, yeah. I mean, also, it's very progressive for sure. Somebody's asking, so can you make an appointment before arriving in Mexico? And it depends on which appointment you're talking about. Are you talking about the Mexican consulate or are you talking about immigration? So maybe you can speak a little bit to this, Saul.
Yeah, if he's speaking about booking an appointment to finish the second part of your residency, yes, as of September 17 this year, I think, immigration resumed its online booking system. So yes, they are open for 3 weeks ahead, average 3 weeks ahead. So as of now, some cities you can find spots up to November 21st. Some of them are already booked, but the answer would be yes, you can.
Yeah, you can. And in fact, a lot of cities, that's the only way that you can do it. All right, this is a big one. Blaine, thanks for being here. He's looking to move to Cabo San Lucas. He has dual citizenship from the USA and Canada, and his wife and daughter are Canadian. He's applying as the main breadwinner. I like that of the family. And I already know that the nearest consulate to us is in Toronto. My question is, would it be best for me to apply as a USA or a Canadian citizen? Is there an advantage to applying as one over the other?
If you are applying in Toronto, I would suggest that you apply as a Canadian. The requirements would be the same. Either if you apply as a U.S. citizen in Toronto, the economic the economic solvency amounts will be exactly the same, regardless the nationality that you show up with. I would suggest that you apply as a Canadian in Toronto.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Depends on where you're planning to apply. And it also depends on how fast you need to apply, Blaine. If you find an appointment sooner in the USA versus Toronto, I would say then travel to the USA and apply as a US citizen, if that's important to you. If you are willing to wait until next year and have no rush and, then I would say whatever's closest to you. Yolanda, thank you so much for being here. She's moving to Mexico City. She has dual citizenship. What does she need to do? You don't lose your citizenship by moving to Mexico, by the way, as a U.S. citizen. And if you, I guess maybe you could follow it up with maybe some clarifications on what you mean, what exactly your question means. But what do you need to do? Nothing. As long as you have your citizenship from the United States, and I assume you're talking about citizenship from Mexico, you're welcome to then live in Mexico. You are a citizen. You need to do nothing.
Yeah, if you enter with your Mexican passport, then you will be registered. I'm assuming that you have a Mexican passport. You will be registered as a Mexican and granted the rights of a Mexican. If you use your, I assume it's U.S. passport, then same thing.
Yeah, Exactly. Yeah. When you come to Mexico, use your Mexican passport. When you enter the United States, use your US passport. The same for anybody who might be watching who has a Canadian passport and a Mexican passport. When you come to Mexico, use your Mexican passport.
Yeah.
When you leave or go back to Canada, then you use your Canadian passport. Let's see, Shannon, is there a minimum balance they are looking for and for how long? I'll be coming after retirement, so income is coming from multiple locations at that point. Maybe you can clarify who you're referring to. If you're referring to the consulates, yes. For you to apply based on economic solvency, so meaning you are not going to be petitioned by an employer in Mexico, you're not married to a Mexican national, you're not an investor who has, businesses in Mexico. And so you're not applying through these other ways. You're going because you're an individual who wants to move to Mexico and has the economic means to do it. There is a minimum balance they are looking for. And for how long? Only at the time you apply and the previous last 6 months if you're applying through income, or the previous last 12 months if you're going to be applying based on your savings or your investments. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Based on retirement also, if you're applying for permanent residency, you will need to show 12 months before the last 12 months of your income. If you are applying for temporary residency, you will need your previous last 6 months of bank statements. And yes, every consulate has a minimum amount.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Saul. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
If you want to know what the income requirements are, again, we have those in our residency guide on the free resources. I will mention, Shayna, that something that I think some people might not realize is if you are planning to apply, let's say you're planning to apply tomorrow, November 6th, 2024, but you're planning to retire maybe in 6 months to a year. I would not tell the consulate that. If you are applying based on your current employer. If you are applying based on your current employment income and you're not applying based on your savings, you're not applying based on your current retirement, you're not applying based on, your investments or a house or something like that in Mexico, then if you're solely applying based on current income that you are earning through a job, or maybe you're a contractor, whatever the case might be, but you're going through income, but you are actually thinking of retiring in maybe 6 months to a year after you move to Mexico, I would not volunteer that information. I don't know what Saul has to say about that.
I would agree. You just need to explain what is going on at the time of your appointment. No need to talk about any future references.
Yeah,
because they will stick to whatever they have in front of them at that time.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not obligated to share what your future plans are. Mm-hmm. They might ask you, and you can just say, I don't know. I have this job right now, and I'm moving, and I continue.
I'm still planning. I'm in the planning stage of this.
I'm still going to be working for this employer because
you are. Steps, first authorize my visa.
Yeah, just make sure you get approved, because the reason why Saul and I say this is because we've heard of people who have said that, volunteered that information, like, oh, I'm working right now for XYZ company, but then I'm going to move to Mexico in 6 months and then retire. And then the consulate will say, okay, we'll come back when you retire, and then we'll see if you qualify then. And you don't want that, because maybe your income changes drastically and you no longer qualify under economic solvency. So try to get your residency when you can qualify, and you don't need to volunteer any information about the future. You also don't know. Maybe you actually end up working 6 months to a year from now. So you're not necessarily not saying the truth. You really don't know. This is a great question. We get this all the time. Where do the facilitators live? Are there any in the United States? So I will say, just based on the ones that we have in the online guide, Saul, for example, lives in Cancun. He travels back and forth to Mexico City and has clients in both cities. Our facilitators, 99% of them live in Mexico. So they live in the city where they carry out that process. If you're going to be working with a facilitator in Playa del Carmen, most likely that person lives in Playa del Carmen, or maybe in a nearby city that she can easily get to the immigration office in Playa del Carmen. If you're going to be working with a facilitator in Guadalajara, most likely that facilitator lives in Guadalajara, or again, in one of the general municipalities that cover Guadalajara, and so on and so forth. The only exception, particularly for us in the online guide, is we do have a facilitator that lives in San Diego and helps a lot of our customers get their residency visas in Tijuana. He has you meet him in his office in San Diego. He starts the process. He drives you over to Tijuana, does the immigration process there, and then he drives you back to San Diego, usually within the same day. Assuming that there are no like hiccups in the immigration process, that all your paperwork is perfectly neat, it's usually the same day. But that's the only exception for us in our online guide. There might be other facilitators that I don't know of that work in the United States, but I don't think they have much of a market, because the consulates do not allow you to bring a lawyer with you to your consulate appointment. Mm-hmm. So there's not really a market for it.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yeah, so most of them live in Mexico. However, a lot of them, like Saul, can help you with a lot of your process on the US or Canadian side. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. Yeah, if you want to get in touch with Saul, his contact information is in our guide. To get access to our vetted directory of contacts, as well as our steps for moving to Mexico, you do have to purchase the guide. And I've included a link down below so you can get more information about how to purchase, what's included, what other customers have said, and all that good information. Once you purchase it, you get instant access to everything. So you get instant access to Saul's contact information, and you also get instant access to our online course, which covers a lot of information on how to move to Mexico. Okay, this is a good question. Trying to get residency for my wife. Do we need to have established a residence, so basically a rental contract, or have a house in Mexico in order for them to do their Mexican consulate appointment?
For the consular appointment?
Uh-huh.
No, you don't need a residency in Mexico.
What about with immigration in Mexico?
Okay, that's a whole different story. For the consular section, you do not need to give them an address in Mexico, wherever you're going to be. For the second part of your residency in Mexico, you will need an address in whatever city you intend to relocate. There are offices that will require an actual utility bill. It doesn't have to be under your name, but it only needs to be no older than 3 months. So you can get it from a friend. You can get it from, if you are intending to make a short-term rental, you can ask your landlord. And most of the cases, immigration uses these only for statistical purposes, and just to make sure that people that are applying at, let's say, Cancun office live within the area of responsibility of Cancun office. Not in if people live in Tulum, that's a responsibility of Playa del Carmen. Other places like Mérida will only ask you to write or to provide an address in your paperwork. They will not require an utility bill, and these are the kind of specific local things that we usually help people with.
Correct. I'm going to take 3 more questions, and then I'm going to let Saul take the rest of his evening off. So can the visa be denied if the proper documents are not brought? Or do we get a second appointment to bring what is missing? I'm assuming she's talking about, or he is talking about, the consulate part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want me to elaborate on this?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Again, it depends on the consular officer. The consular officer might be a very nice person, and if you miss, let's say, a minor document, well, he I have had cases that people are required. Uh, Maybe a person forgot to bring the last month of his bank statement, so the officer didn't make this person to book a new appointment. He said, "Okay, go home, bring it, and come here next Wednesday." And there was no need to book a new appointment. This person was able to provide the missing small, not that important document. If you
Mhm.
miss like part of your documents, or they are not the documents as the consulate asked, well, then they will deny and they will ask you to book a new appointment.
Yeah. Yeah, it really it is a very I will say this that Mexico is awesome because it is very human, even when
Mhm.
you're dealing in bureaucracy, as opposed to maybe the United States and Canada, where everything's like very by the book. And if you
Mhm.
don't have this specific thing, it's an absolute no, which is nice because you know exactly what you need to bring.
Mhm.
But in Mexico, things work a little bit differently. It is very human. And I have heard of people just plead their case and say, oh, like it's my only chance. And people are usually very human, even though they have a big responsibility to
Mhm.
follow the rules.
Mhm.
Um, so some people, it really does depend on who you talk to. But I will
Yeah.
say, for you to avoid that surprise of not bringing the proper documents, is to hire a professional who will help make sure that you come prepared.
Yeah.
Um, so somebody has not traveled to Mexico for a very long time. Will that be an issue for residency? They're looking at moving to Mexico for retirement.
No, that will not be an issue. Mexico, I'm sure they will welcome you as
With arms wide open.
a new future resident.
Mhm.
Just start your process.
Yeah, we've had customers who have never even been to Mexico,
Mhm.
and they process their residency visas and then they move, and they've never even visited.
Mhm.
So no, Rosalind, you're fine. Thank you for being here. Oh, this is a good one, and I think we're gonna do maybe one more after this. How long does it take after your appointment at the consulate and then finish the process in Mexico?
Okay. Once you have your visa stamped in your passport, you have up to 6 months to come into Mexico and finish your process. A very important thing to keep in mind is that the visa that will be stamped in your passport is for one single entry. So the time when you enter Mexico, you must finish your process, and you have 30 days to finish your process. You have up to 30 days. But again, with this current online booking appointment system, people can plan ahead. Let's say people they get their visa granted last week, and once they are granted, we can start the process, and they can tell us a date within the following up to 6 months, and then we will just be very very alert to secure a spot on the city and the day of that suits their travel plans.
Yeah, I will say for anybody watching, again, I'm going to recap. There's two parts to the residency visa process for most of you. Of course, not everybody, but for most of you. Unless you have family in Mexico or you are going through the regularization process, most of you have two parts to this process. One starts in your home country. A lot of you, that's going to be the United States or Canada. And then the second part is in Mexico. I will say one more thing. If you are driving to Mexico to finish the process, it is very important that you stop at an immigration office and make sure that you get your FMM. Without it, you cannot get your residency card. So it's very important that you don't skip that process.
Mhm.
It's also very important for those of you who are flying, particularly if you're going to be working with Saul. Uh, they have a lot of these kiosks at the Cancun airport, and these kiosks are great technology meant for tourists to facilitate and speed up the process of them registering them as tourists. However, residents coming in to finish the process should never use these kiosks because
Mhm.
it will register you as a tourist, and then you can lose your residency visa, and then you'll have to start the process again, and you don't want that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Always see a human immigration officer and show them right away your visas, not even the information page on your passport, your visas right away, just to make sure that the first thing that the immigration officer sees is your visa, so they will know right away, and will stamp the word canje, that means exchange, and the number 30 days, which is the time period that you have to finish the process.
Correct. Again, this is all covered in that Mexico residency guide that I have on our website. So really, I really encourage you guys to read it. Let's see. I'm going to take one more. Somebody said this is such great information, Saul. So thank you so much for providing it. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to cover one more about regularization. What documents, again, need to be expired for the regularization program, or also known as the RNE program?
Migratory document expired, whether a tourist visa or FMM, resident card expired, and enters into Mexico between 2015 and 2022.
Yeah. And again,
passport,
Carolyn.
Obviously, passport.
Yeah, your passport entries. Carolyn, if you're interested in knowing what those requirements are, again, laid out, I encourage you to go check out, you and everybody who's watching, the blog post that I posted in the comment section. Because as things change, Saul and all the other facilitators that we work with give me a lot of information so that I can share it with you guys. And that is the most up-to-date, that and the online guide that we sell is the most up-to-date piece of document that we have, or documentation that we have about the regularization program or the residency visa or any of these things that help you get residency in Mexico. So yeah. So with that, I want to, again, thank my guests so much for being here. Saul, muchísimas gracias so much for spending your evening with us.
All my pleasure.
And for you guys at home, I hope this was a welcomed break from all the election noise. Whichever candidate wins tonight, or we probably, this is my prediction. I think that we probably won't really know until 2 or 3 days from now, but that's just my prediction. So for those of you guys who are maybe at home sitting, biting your nails, wondering, just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. I do encourage you to consider Mexico. At least, you're going to be fully oblivious to what political chatter there is in Mexico, one, because you don't speak the language. So it'll be a really nice welcome. And also, Mexico is very different in the political climate. There's not this you can disagree with a family member about a political candidate and it doesn't get aggressive. You know what I mean? Like you can express your opinions about a political candidate and nobody's going to throw, anything at you. So it's very, very different too. And I think that a lot of people are really looking forward to that, that it's not this culture of hate and divisiveness and you're my enemy because you go for the other person. It's not like that. So, and I encourage you to contact people like Saul and his family who also do relocation tours and all the other vetted contacts that we have in our online guide. Without them, our business would absolutely not exist. So it's really because of people like Saul that you guys are able to connect with him and hopefully hire him. And yeah, so I want to thank Saul and all the people that we have in the online guide.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I'm going to leave you guys. Stay tuned for the next live stream. I'm hopefully by this time, next week, I will be able to do this on YouTube as well. If you know somebody who works at YouTube or you yourself work at YouTube, let me know because I would love to escalate this process. But I have full confidence that we will be back on YouTube in no time. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight, Saul.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you very much.
And I will see you guys on our next live stream. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.